There's a kind of summer silence you only get in the Midwest. Not quiet, exactly, just the absence of interruption. The wind hums through fields of dry grass. A cicada sings somewhere close, maybe on a fence post. You can hear the sound of the sun pressing down, and if you're lucky, the slow stretch of a cloud as it sails across an open sky. It was on a day like that, a July afternoon. So still, it might have been held in amber that a boy named Theo wandered into a forgotten part of town. He wasn't running away, not exactly, just looking for quiet. The kind you can't get with a TV buzzing in the background or lawnmowers growling every morning. Theo was 12. And like most boys of 12, he didn't always know what he was looking for until he found it. That afternoon, it was a path. It began behind the old rail depot, where vines had long since swallowed the chain link fence. Theo had ducked through a gap in the metal, barely wide enough for his frame. On the other side, time had slowed. He followed the path through overgrown weeds and tall grass, past the shells of buildings that hadn't seen a visitor in decades. And then, rising ahead like a ghost in a heat haze, a stadium. Not big, not shiny, just ... There, half buried in vines, sun-bleached and silent. Like a memory someone forgot to forget, Theo stood at the edge of the field. The gate hung off its hinges, a sheet of rust Fred. Above it, the faded nameplate read, Shoal Creek. Park home of the Golden Fox Shed. Never heard of them. No one in town ever talked about this place, but something about the way the dust danced in the infield made his chest ache a little. He pushed the gate open. It didn't creak. It sighed. Inside, the field was both ruined and perfect. The bleachers were bent and broken. A concession stand leaned sideways, swallowed by ivy. The scoreboard stood like a scarecrow at the far end. No lights, no numbers, just blank wooden slats. But the diamond, oh, the diamond was whole. Grass yellowed but trimmed. Bases half buried but intact. The pitcher's mound looked as though it had just been shaped yesterday. Theo climbed up the nearest row of seats and sat. No one else was there. Not a soul. And that's when he heard it. A pop, not loud, just familiar. Leather meeting leather. Then a voice, faint, deep. That'll do, satchel. That'll do just fine. Theo froze. Another sound would, cracking against ball, sharp and real. He looked down. The field had changed. No ... Not changed. Woken up. The sky had deepened, like evening come early. The air shimmered at the edges. And onto the field, through the dugouts, and across the dirt, they came. Men in uniforms, crisp whites and old-school grays, pinstripes, high socks, not modern athletes. These were the ones from old stories, the kind that lived in card packs and black and white films, the kind that people's grandfathers once called the real ball players, and Theo, without knowing how, recognized them. Jackie Robinson, number 42, warm-up swings, smooth as silk. Satchel Paige, lean as lightning, lobbing pitches with a grin like he already knew the outcome. And there, home plate, leaning on a bat the way a lion leans on a throne. Babe Ruth, Theo's breath caught in his chest. He knew them, not from life, not even from his father's stories, from somewhere deeper, from books that smelled of dust and pencil shavings, from VHS tapes with grainy sound, from grainy memories he wasn't sure were his. The players moved with ease, talking, laughing, but the sound came strange like music underwater. Echoes of joy, long delayed. The game began without fanfare. No crowd, no announcer, just sunlight through dust. And the sound of baseball. Theo didn't question it. Not then. He just watched. Because the way Satchel moved on the mound, shoulders loose, fingers slow, was like poetry with a fastball. And the way Jackie ran bases made Theo's stomach flip like he'd jumped from a swing too high. Babe laughed after every hit, swinging like the bat was an extension of his soul. They weren't playing for score. They were playing for something else. Memory, maybe. Joy. Each other. Theo leaned forward, elbows on knees, and felt something shift inside him. The kind of shift you feel when you realize you're seeing something no one else ever will. The bat cracked. Again, dash hard. A line drive. 2. Deep center. Jackie was already halfway to second before the outfielder moved. Satchel clapped from the dugout, and then Babe turned toward the stands. His eyes scanned the seats and landed on Theo. He grinned, tipped his cap, and said, clear as sunlight, "Glad you made it, kid." Theo blinked. The wind picked up the field. Blurred. And in a blink, it was over. Gone. Just rust and vines again. Dusty bases. A cracked bat lying by home plate. But the air smelled like fresh-cut grass. And Theo's heart beat with something wild and light. He sat for a long time after that, not waiting, just ... remembering. Theo didn't tell anyone. Not his mom, not the man at the corner store, not even Mrs. Lowell, who always asked too many questions and smelled like peppermints. Some things weren't meant to be explained, not because, but because explaining them would somehow make them less real. Instead, The next day, Theo went back. He waited until the sun had begun to slide behind the grain silos, and the heat stopped pressing against his skin like a warm towel. He took the same path behind the depot, slipped through the same hole in the chain-link fence, and followed the trail of worn grass and dry soil that led to Shoal Creek Park. It looked the same: rust, dust, silence. But Theo knew better now. He stepped through the open gate and sat in the same seat, second row behind third base, where the plastic was faded and the metal legs moaned. Slightly underweight, he waited. Nothing happened. Not at first. The wind stirred. A bird called out. Somewhere in the trees behind right field, a branch snapped and crackled. Still nothing. And then the dust shifted. Not from breeze, not from boots. It moved like memory. Slow, lazy, circular. A hush fell across the field, and from the dugout they emerged again. Not identical to the day before, no. This time, their uniforms were tinged differently. Babe's sleeves were rolled higher. Jackie wore a wide grin that didn't leave his face. Satchel twirled the ball in his fingers like it was an old coin. They were still the legends, still themselves, but also more present, like they knew someone was watching. Babe jogged to the plate and winked up at the stands. "Hey kid," he called. "You coming down, or you're just gonna watch?" Theo's heart skittered in his chest. He stood slowly, pointed at himself. "Me." Jackie leaned on the bat like a walking stick. "Don't see anyone else sitting in your seat." Satchel cupped his hands around his mouth. "We're one short. Can't play shortstop without someone to fill the gap." Theo looked down at his sneakers, scuffed and too tight. He looked at his hands, grubby with summer. Skin at the knuckles, flaked and brown. He nodded, climbed down the stands, walked toward the field, and with every step, the air got thicker, not hot, just full. Like walking through sunlight thickened by years. The field no longer looked broken. It looked timeless. As his feet touched the dirt, he felt it. A hum, not a sound. A feeling. Like stepping into something older than rules, wiser than fear. Babe tossed him a glove. It fit perfectly. "Catch this one," he said. Theo raised the glove. The ball hit with a snap. Didn't sting. Just landed solid. Right. Jackie jogged past him, clapping once. "Welcome home, slugger." Theo couldn't speak. He just nodded. The game began. The game. They didn't ask his name. They didn't explain the rules. They just played. Jackie at second. Satchel on the mound. Babe at the plate, swinging like thunder. And Theo at shortstop. At first, He didn't move much. The others covered ground like water flowing smooth, efficient, precise. But eventually, a line drive came screaming his way. Time slowed. The sun shimmered. He reached out, caught it. No cheers, no high dash fives, just Satchel nodding from the mound, yogged hands. He said, "Good hands," Jackie added. Babe called out from the dugout, "You run as fast as you think." Theo wasn't sure what that meant, but he smiled anyway. They played. And as they played, the shadows didn't lengthen. The sun didn't fall. Time held its breath. Each swing, each pitch, each throw was clean. Real but also unreal. Like a memory passed down and finally remembered the right way. Midway through the game, Theo stood at the edge of the field during a break. Satchel came over, leaned on the bat. "You ever heard of Shoal Creek before this?" Theo shook his head. "No, sir." Satchel smiled. "That's all right. Some places remember you before you remember them." Theo looked out across the diamond. "You... You're real, right?" Satchel chuckled, deep and warm. "More real than some things that breathe." Jackie walked up, tossing a ball in his hand. "You know, folks talk a lot about history," he said. "But what they don't always get is some things don't stay behind us. They echo forward." Babe called out from first base, "You too. Gonna philosophize all day or play some ball?" The inning resumed. By the time Theo stood at the plate bat in hand, Babe giving tips over his shoulder, he wasn't scared. He wasn't trying to be good. He was just present. The ball came fast, straight. He swung, crack. It flew. Not a homer, not a rocket dot, just clean contact, and that was enough. He ran dot, first, second, third, home, dot, home, dust. The smell of leather, grass, eternity. They played until the air turned soft and silver. Not night, not day, just that in-between where things are allowed to exist sideways. The players gathered by the mound. Babe pulled a cigar from nowhere. Satchel leaned against the post. Jackie kicked at the base with a smile. Theo stood among them, tired, sweaty, grinning. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. Jackie nodded. "Long as you remember how to get here," Satchel added, "and long as you don't stop believing you belong." Babe reached out, ruffled Theo's hair. "Not bad, kid. Not bad at all." The wind shifted, the light folded, and Theo stood alone, back in the quiet. Stadium, bleachers creaking, ivy still, but something remained in his glove. A ball, faded red stitching, no brand. Just worn leather, and a faint scent of tobacco. He turned it over, and on one side, barely visible, were 3 letters, carved faintly by hand. SCP, Shoal Creek Park. He held it to his chest and smiled. The next morning, Theo awoke before the sun. He didn't mean to, just happened. His body stirred with the hum of something unfinished, like a song paused mid-melody. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft rhythm of his breath and the faraway rustle of a waking world. His glove sat by the window, the baseball still tucked inside. He hadn't told anyone about it, not even his older cousin, Drew, who knew everything about stats and teams, and who once called Babe Ruth overrated, just to get a rise out of their granddad. This wasn't something to brag about. It wasn't a thing you owned. It was something you kept like breath, like memory. And so he got dressed quietly, shoes first. Then his oldest cap, the one with a fraying bill and a spot of dried mud near the back. By the time the town clocks chimed 6, Theo was already slipping through the fence again. Shoal Creek Park waited, still, quiet, but not empty. As he stepped through the gate, the air shifted like the moment just before a curtain rises. The bleachers were the same as always, crooked, rusted, dotted with moss. The infield lay bare and dust-coated, but the feeling, that feeling from before, had returned. He sat, same seat, second row, waited, and the dust began to shimmer. This time, the entrance wasn't sudden. It unfolded slowly, like a photograph developing in warm water. Figures emerged from the dugout. A breeze caught a loose paper hot dog wrapper. The distant crack of baton ball echoed, even though no one had swung yet. Jackie Robinson walked onto the field first, his stride easy, shoulders loose. He glanced up into the stands, his eyes finding Theo immediately. He didn't wave, just nodded. That was enough. Theo made his way down, stepping over uneven concrete and forgotten peanut shells, until his shoes met the dirt. Jackie tossed him a ball. You came back. Theo caught it in the glove, the motion instinctive now. I couldn't stay away. Good, Jackie said. The game doesn't wait, but memory always leaves the gate open. Theo wasn't sure what that meant, but the way Jackie said it made him feel like he was supposed to understand later. Not now, that day. The game moved differently, not slower, just deeper, as if every swing and every pitch sank into the earth and rippled outward. Theo played second base this time. He didn't ask why. He just was there. When Satchel wound up on the mound, it felt like watching a great river decide to curve. but never forced. Babe Ruth arrived, light of course. He came sauntering out, chewing something and laughing to himself. His jersey slightly unbuttoned, his bat held not like a weapon, but like an old friend. "Afternoon, fellas," he grinned. "Hope you saved a few swings for the rest of us." Theo smiled at him. Babe saw it. "Kid, you still swinging for heaven or hit in for home?" Theo blinked. "What's the difference?" Babe leaned in close, tapped his bat once on the ground. "You'll know when the fence disappears." And then he stepped to the plate. The ball came in hot, one of Satchel's magic pitches. Babe swung. The sound it made was round, not sharp, not loud dot, just dot dot, complete. The ball sailed up, 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 then froze in midair. Thosqueiented. No, not frozen, dot, slowed. He watched it hover, a lazy arc against a sky that had turned suddenly golden. It shimmered there, like a coin deciding how to land. And as it did, Theo felt it, something blooming in his chest. Not excitement, not pride, but something older, like belonging, like the realization that he wasn't just watching something extraordinary. He was part of it when the inning ended. Satchel sat beside Theo. On the dugout bench, long legs stretched out. "Game like this don't come every day," he said. Theo nodded. "I don't want it to end." Satchel tipped his cap. "That's how you know it's real." Theo looked out onto the field. "Why me?" Satchel shrugged. "Why anyone? Some kids find lightning bugs. Some find ghosts. You found us." Babe walked past then, slapping Satchel's shoulder. "Ghosts with style," he said. Jackie added from across the diamond, "and good knees." They all laughed. Theo did too. It was a sound he didn't know he'd been holding. The game went on. The game went on. Theo batted twice, struck out once, hit a slow dribbler the second time, but reached base. Jackie slapped his back as he rounded first. "You got hustle, kid." Theo grinned, so wide it hurt his cheeks. When twilight rolled in, not the real kind, but the kind that feels like the edge of dream, the players gathered around. Home plate, not because the game was over, but because the moment was come. "Back," Jackie said softly, "if you want." Babe pointed at him with his bat. "Just remember where the door is." Satchel winked. "You'll find it, even when you think you can't." Theo looked at them, these men who belonged to history, but lived inside this glowing field of forever. He opened his mouth to say something, but the wind rose. The light folded, and they were gone, back on the bleachers. Theo sat alone. The glove still in his lap, and beside him, something he hadn't seen before. A cap, faded navy, no logo, just worn fabric. Smelling faintly of cedar and dust and chalk, he picked it up, turned it over. Inside the brim, stitched with red thread, for those who remember how to play. Theo pressed it to his chest and smiled. Autumn came softly to the town. The trees along Main Street turned the color of dried marigold and cider apples. Shops pulled out their flannel displays, and kids walked to school, crunching through leaves. Their backpacks heavy with books and pencils and new beginnings. But Theo kept returning to the field. He didn't go every day. He'd learned that the game didn't work like that. It came when it was ready. Not when you demanded, or even when you hoped, but when the time was right. And when it did come, it always arrived the same way. A shimmer in the air, a hush over the grass, and that beautiful, impossible sound of wood connecting with leather. Heartbeats inside memory. Sometimes the players would appear all at once. Babe, laughing from the dugout. Jackie, stretching near second. Satchel, quietly adjusting his cap like he was lining up the stars. Other times, it would start with just one. Maybe Josh Gibson behind the plate, quietly tapping his mitt. Or cool Papa Bell, sprinting from foul pole to foul pole, his feet barely touching the ground each time. They welcomed Theo like an old teammate, not like a guest, not like a child, but like someone who belonged. On a golden October afternoon, Creek with someone new. Her name was Maya. She sat 2 rows behind him in school and always carried a sketchbook filled with birds. She wore her hair pulled into 2 tight puffs and had a habit of whistling softly. When she thought no one was listening, Theo had watched her draw a blue jay once in 15 seconds flat. It made his stomach flutter in a strange, not bad way. So, after 2 weeks of overthinking it, he told her about the field. Not everything, just enough. She raised an eyebrow. So, like ghosts? Not exactly, he said. More like ... echoes. She didn't laugh. She just nodded. I'll come, but only if I get to bring my sketchbook. They reached Shoal Creek just before dusk. Maya stared at the crumbling gate and the wind-blown bleachers and said, "It smells like old popcorn and dreams." Theo grinned. That's about right. They climbed into the stands, sat, waited for a long time. Nothing happened, just the sound of crickets, just the slow collapse of another day. Then, without warning, the dust swirled the sky, changed and from the dugout emerged Jackie, his uniform brighter than ever. his smile calm. He waved. Maya gasped and began to draw. That night, something new unfolded. The players didn't start the game right away. Instead, they approached the stands. Babe Ruth walked up to Maya, peered over her shoulder. "Well, I'll be," he said. "You got more detail in those pencil lines than I ever had in my swing." She blinked. "You're real. Only as long as folks like you keep seeing us." Satchel nodded. "Every sketch, every word, every story told, that's how we breathe." Jackie looked at Theo. "Told you. The game remembers who remembers it." And so, they played. Maya sat on the grass behind home plate, filling page after page with curved arms and coiled legs. Arcs of motion frozen in graphite. Theo fielded 3 grounders, dove for 1, landed flat on his stomach, and came up grinning. Like a fool, that Babe hit a shot so hard it shimmered. Mid-air.SATL struck out a batter with a pitch that seemed to pause time. The game felt wider now, louder, just deeper. After the final out, the team huddled on the mound. Babe placed his bat on the ground, tip first. "Might be time for a new lineup," he said. Jackie turned to Theo and Maya. "You've seen the game. You've played in it. Now what?" Maya closed her sketchbook. "Show it. Share it." Theo nodded. "Tell it right." Satchel grinned. "How it lives." They placed their gloves on the mound, one by one, and disappeared like wind through tall grass. Theo and Maya walked home, slowly at the corner where their streets split. She paused, held up a drawing. It was Theo Midrung, eyes wide, dust at his heels. "You looked like you were flying," she said. He blushed. "You made it look better," she shrugged. "Or maybe just true." She handed him the page and walked away, humming to herself. That night, Theo hung the drawing over his bed. Below it, he placed his glove, and beside it, the cap he didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he knew this much: Shoal Creek Park still had more stories to tell, and he'd be there to catch them. Years passed. The stadium didn't change, not in the way old places crumble or get paved over. Shoal Creek Park remained quiet, overgrown. Its gate rusted and canted like an old man resting on one leg. But for Theo, it had never really been about the stadium. It was about what lived inside it, not in concrete or steel, but in dust, light, and memory. He still came back. Not every day, but enough. Sometimes he'd bring Maya. Sometimes he came alone. Other times, he'd sit in the bleachers and just listen. Because sometimes, if the wind was right and the shadows fell just so, you could hear the sound of a fastball carving air. or a crowd holding its breath between pitch and swing. And when the moment was just right, the game would begin again. Same legends, same rules or lack thereof. Same invitation, come as you are. Play like it matters. Leave something behind. Maya's sketches eventually filled an entire notebook. The cover was a mess of fingerprints and foxed edges. Inside were moments captured as clearly as the day they happened. One page was just Satchel's grin. Another showed Jackie mid-slide, dust curling around him like smoke. Babe's laugh was in there too. His shoulders back, mouth wide, head thrown to the sky. And there, in the final pages, was Theo, younger, still wearing that frayed cap, bat over his shoulder, staring into a sun that didn't exist anywhere, except on that field. They got older. Time, as it does, moved on. Theo took a job teaching history. Maya worked in design. They drifted, like all friends do when the world grows louder. But they never forgot. Once a year, always in July, they met at Shoal Creek. Never scheduled, never spoken. They just showed up and waited one summer. The shimmer didn't come. No players emerged. No bat-cracked dot. Just wind. Just silence. Theo sat on the bleachers, the wood groaning beneath him. Maya beside him, sketchbook in her lap. She closed it gently. It's been a long time. Looked out at the diamond. Or maybe we're not the ones who need to see it anymore. Theo didn't reply, but he smiled. A small, warm, full smile, because he knew she was right. They walked the field one last time, past the mound where Satchel stood, past second base, where Jackie danced between throws, past home plate, where Babe always turned and winked up at the empty seats, and in the dugout. Theo found something. A glove, old, worn. Inside it, a note, faded, but legible. It read, asterisk, for those who remember, the game never truly ends. It just waits for someone who knows how to listen. Asterisk. Theo left the glove there, placed his own beside it. Maya tucked a copy of her sketchbook between the wooden beams of the dugout bench. They stood for a while, watching the grass bend gently, then turned dot and walked home. Decades later, a boy named Caleb wandered behind the old rail depot. He was 12, curious, alone, the kind of kid who liked silence more than screens. And he found a field, empty, quiet, but not forgotten. He climbed the bleachers, sat, waited, and just before the sun slipped below the edge of sky, the dust shimmered. A figure stepped from the dugout, not babe, not satchel. A new player, tall, kind eyes, beneath, afraid, navy cap. He looked up at Caleb, smiled, and said, "We've been waiting on you, kid. You wanna play?"